Hi, Prince George's County Memorial Library System presents plant-based soul food cooking. My name is Granetta Coleman, and I'm the owner of Rooted Dish. I'm also a certified health coach and a certified Food for Life plant-based cooking instructor. I'm really excited to be here with you today to celebrate Black History Month with a presentation of plant-based soul food classics. And some of you might be wondering why you want to try plant-based soul food. And I did a previous presentation all about plant-based eating. So you could take a look at that on the Prince George's County Memorial Library System YouTube. But I will give you a quick overview. If you are looking to lose weight, better manage your type 2 diabetes, if you're concerned about heart disease, high blood pressure, cancer risk, these are some of the things that a plant-based lifestyle can help you address. So as those things are very prevalent in the Black community, it's one of the reasons why I became plant-based was to better manage my high blood pressure. So if you have some of those concerns as well, you might want to try plant-based eating. And I'm here today to show you two recipes. One is for a black-eyed pea and collard green soup that tries to mimic the flavor of a traditional black-eyed pea dish that I used to have as a kid, just minus the ham hock. And I am also going to make a tofu mac that is a substitute for mac and cheese. So let's get started. I'm going to first prepare the black-eyed pea and collard green soup. So we're going to need an onion. I have a yellow onion here that I am going to dice fine. And onions are great because they help with, they have a lot of antioxidants that can help protect your cells from damage and also from aging. So onions are great to add in your diet. And I'm just going to slice it this way without cutting the end, because that's going to help hold it together. And then I'm going to cut crossways. And you'll see I'm getting a nice small dice. Now, if you don't like chopping your own onions, you can always pick them up pre-chopped in the grocery store. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but some people prefer the convenience and the speed of just having the onions pre-chopped, and that's great, that's fine. So let's do this other half. Again, slicing one direction. And then cutting the opposite direction. And you'll see I have a little bowl over here that I keep for my scraps. And I do that all the time in my kitchen just to keep it a little more organized. That makes the cooking go a little more smoothly. Okay, so we have our onions. Next, I've washed a red bell pepper, and I'm going to dice this up as well. And bell peppers are actually great because they have vitamin C. So we are in the, cold and flu season, so it doesn't hurt to pump up your vitamin C with a little bell pepper. So I'm just going to get rid of this white pith. And then I'm going to slice it in one direction, very similar to the onion. Once you start to get this down, you'll be able to manage cutting up any vegetables. So you go one way. And again, for convenience, you can also find bell peppers pre-sliced, pre-diced in your grocery store. And I'm using a red bell pepper today, but I've also done this recipe with green bell peppers. So whatever your preference is for flavor, you can use that. Let's do the other half. Okay, we've got our bell pepper. Now our next ingredient is going to be celery. So I've already pre-washed my celery and cut it into sticks. And this is how I keep it in my refrigerator. I cut it into sticks and then I put a little water in the bottom of a jar and put the sticks in. And that way people can grab them for easy snacks. I'm just going to take 2 out and we're going to use 2 of them. We're going to cut them lengthwise down the middle. And then I'm going to cut it one more time. As I said, when I was younger, I would have had this soup and it would have had a ham hock in it. And we are removing the animal products. And part of the benefit of that is that it removes saturated fat and cholesterol. And saturated fat and cholesterol can lead to heart disease and actually type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. So removing those ingredients from your diet can really improve your health outlook. All right. I've also got my black eyed peas, and these, because I wanted to make this recipe much quicker, I actually am using canned black eyed peas that I've rinsed and drained. And rinsing the black eyed peas helps remove some of the sodium. I've heard the statistic, it can remove up to 40% of the sodium out of the canned beans. So that's great. You could also do this recipe with dried black eyed peas. It would take longer. You have to soak these usually overnight. I have instructions for that on my website where you can, soak them, and you'd have to cook them a little longer from dried, or use a pressure cooker like an Instant Pot or a slow cooker to cook them. But today I wanted to make this a quick recipe, so I'm just using these pre-cooked from the can. We are also going to use a bunch of spices, and I will bring those out in a minute. The last thing I need to chop up is our collard greens. I've already taken a bunch of collard greens and I've washed them. I use this big bowl. I just fill it with water, pour the water off, shake up the collard greens, do that a couple times to get all of the dirt off. We're going to need 2 cups of collard greens. So this is a fun trick. If you hold the stem and pinch your fingers like this, you can just zip the leaf off of the stem. I'm taking it off the stem because the stem is bitter, a little bit bitter. And so we're just going to zip these leaves off of the stem until we get to what is about 2 cups. I'll double check it once I've chopped it. And dark leafy vegetables are a nutritional powerhouse. They have antioxidants in them, and those are compounds that fight aging and DNA damage in your cells. So they have a great antioxidant in it called beta carotene. It's actually associated with the color orange, and the green in the leaves just covers up the orange color. So you'll see I rolled the leaves up into a cylinder, and then I'm slicing the cylinder into thin ribbons. And they call that chiffonading. And it just gives you these nice ribbons of collard greens. And that looks like about 2 cups. Collard greens also have calcium in them, lots of calcium in both greens and beans. So this recipe is a calcium powerhouse. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my pot into view so that you can watch the cooking process. So we're going to start the pot on medium-high heat, and you'll see that my pot is empty. That is because I'm not going to add any extra oil. I am going to do what is called a water or a broth saute. I'm going to use vegetable broth instead of oil to keep my onions and celery and peppers from sticking to the pot. So once the pot gets a little bit warm, I'm going to dump my onions in. Now, you may be wondering, why am I not using any oil? And the reason is because oil is one of the highest calorie foods you can eat. A gram of oil has 9 calories, and a gram is very small. So you can imagine a tablespoon of oil has over 100 calories, and that will add up, you know, a little bit here, a little bit there, to make it more challenging to manage your weight. So I just shave the oil, shave the calories from the oil right out of the recipe by just doing this water or broth saute. And once you cook for a while without oil, you do not notice the difference in taste. At first, you can be like, things taste a little thin. That's just my description of it. But your taste buds can change. So I'm just going to dump in those onions. You hear them sizzling a little bit. I'm going to dump in the celery. And I'm going to drop in the red peppers. And we're just going to let that saute for a minute. And while that's sauteing, I can talk a little bit more about the spices that we're going to add. We are going to add a couple of bay leaves. Ooh, turn that like that, there, a couple of bay leaves. We are going to add some thyme. And we're going to add about a half a teaspoon of thyme. We're going to add some black pepper. We're going to add smoked paprika. And we are going to add an adobo chili. And actually, I am going to have to cut this one up. I forgot about that. So I'm going to pop this, and you find these adobo chilies in usually the international food section of your grocery store. So wherever the taco kits are, that's where the adobo chilies are also going to be. And I'm just going to open this can. I'm going to pull out a chili. And adobo chilies are very spicy. So this is going to add a little kick to our recipe. I'm just going to cut this up. Into little pieces. And if you didn't, and it also adds a little smokiness. If you didn't want to use an adobo chili, you didn't have one, you could use any other chili that you had. For example, a jalapeno pepper. You could sprinkle in some red pepper flakes, just something to give it a little bit of kick if you like spiciness. The other ingredients we're going to add are liquid smoke. And this can be hard to find in the grocery store. You actually have to, sometimes it's on the very bottom shelf by the barbecue sauces. And this is going to add like a smokiness that will replace the ham hock. And we're going to add some balsamic vinegar. And this adds a little tang to it. And normally it's traditional to add vinegar to your collard greens. So this is going to give that traditional flavor. So you see the vegetables are cooking down and nothing is sticking yet. So I haven't had to add any vegetable broth. But if things started to look too like they were starting to burn, I would just splash in a little bit of vegetable broth to make sure things don't burn and stick. This is going great. Oh, I forgot one more ingredient, my garlic. So I'm going to push this out of the way so you can see how I prepare the garlic. We'll just let that keep simmering. And I will show you how I prepare my garlic. So we're going to need 4 cloves of garlic. I have my garlic head. I'm just going to break 4 cloves off, and the paper you can just throw in your scrap bowl. Okay, I've got my 4 cloves. And in order to break the paper, you just turn your knife to the side and hit your knife with your hand, and that will crack the paper and make it easy for it to come off. And, you know, for convenience, again, a lot of stores sell the garlic nice and clean without the paper on it. You could get that. Stores also sell the garlic pre-minced in little crumbles, but fresh. You could get that as well. There may be some chemicals in there, so, and the flavor isn't quite as strong as with fresh garlic. So I like to use fresh garlic when I can. And I cut the garlic up very similar to the onion. I'm slicing it in half. Then I'm slicing it lengthwise. And then I turn my knife the other direction and slice it that way. So just making long slices and turning it, doing smaller slices. You get a little dice. Garlic is actually in the same family as onions. So it gives you that same kind of protection against aging and cell damage and cancer as the onions do. So it is great to add lots of garlic in to your dishes for health. All right, let me bring this back so you can see. Everything is cooking down nicely. Now I'm going to add my spices. We need a half a teaspoon of the thyme. We need 2 bay leaves. 2 bay leaves, 1, 2. We need our smoked paprika, 3 teaspoons. And it smells fantastic and smoky. So we have the smokiness of the paprika, the smokiness of the adobo chili, the smokiness of the liquid smoke. Really bring this home. We're going to add our black pepper. Just going to grind up about a half a teaspoon of that. Sprinkle that in. It's going to make sure everything keeps moving so it doesn't burn. Now it's time to add our diced up adobo chili. We're also going to add our garlic. And we're going to let this cook for about 30 seconds. Some recipes call for you to put the garlic in with the onion, and I find that the garlic may have a tendency to burn if you do that. So I usually add the garlic in a next stage when all the vegetables are pretty much done sauteing. Now we're going to add in our vegetable broth. We need about 5 cups. And one of these cartons is 4 cups. So that gets us pretty close to where we need to be. I just have a second carton for that additional cup. I don't usually use a pot that is this big. So I may need to add a little extra broth to make sure everything is covered, just because of the width of the pot. Now I'm going to add in my balsamic vinegar. We need two teaspoons. And I have a tendency, I'll add it to the soup, but then when I'm also eating it, I will put more in my individual serving because I love that tang from the balsamic vinegar. And now we're also going to add our liquid smoke. We need 1 tablespoon of liquid smoke. So I'm just going to pour that in. Just going to give that a little stir. Then we're going to add in our black-eyed peas. And our collard greens. Oof, gorgeous. All right, so I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit so that this will come to a boil. And then I'm going to turn it down, cover it, and simmer it for about 20 minutes. And that's basically just to heat it through. Everything except the collard greens are cooked. So it's not going to take very long for this to warm up. Some people like their collard greens really well done. So that may lead you to want to lengthen the cooking time, and that's fine. The beauty of having a recipe is that you can make it your own. It is not, you're not required to follow it exactly the way that it's presented to you. So while this comes to a boil and a simmer, we are going to get ready for our next recipe. Moved my black-eyed peas and collard greens to the back burner here. And once it comes to a boil, I'm going to pop a top on it and let it simmer for that 20 to 30 minutes. In the meantime, I have got us ready to do the mac and cheese. I have prepped by pre-cooking some elbow macaroni. I have chose to use this Barilla elbow macaroni, which is made of semolina wheat. You could also use a pasta that is 100% whole wheat that looks like that brown whole wheat, but my family prefers this one. So this is what I'm going to use. And interestingly, people think that if you have type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, you have to stay away from things like pasta and other carbs. But actually, the science has discovered that pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes are due to oil that is in your cells, fat that's in your cells. And you can learn more about that on my website, rooteddish.com. So basically, it's not the carbs that are causing your body to not be able to use insulin. It's actually the fat in your cells. So, and pasta actually is lower glycemic index than a lot of breads. So eating pasta, thumbs up if you're on a plant-based lifestyle. And so you can enjoy this vegan mac and cheese. One of our ingredients for this vegan mac and cheese is tofu. And many people are not used to working with tofu. And this is a great recipe to start with because you just blend the tofu up. So I'm just using firm tofu. You get it in the refrigerated section of most grocery stores. It comes in these packages because it's packed in water. So when I usually open it, I open it over the sink. But this time I'm just going to open it over this bowl so you can see, oh, there goes the water. I'll let that all out. And we're using firm tofu today. This is what it looks like. And tofu is made out of soybeans, and it actually has a lot of protein and calcium. So again, really good. And I'm just going to drop that into the blender. We're also going to add a can of coconut milk. And I chose light coconut milk so we could minimize the fat a little bit in this recipe. Full fat coconut milk has a lot of fat. And again, as I was talking about diabetes and the link between fat, I'm just going to use a lighter, lower fat coconut milk. So this isn't a recipe that I would have like every week because it actually is still a little bit high fat, but it is healthier than the cheese alternative because dairy has actually been linked to a lot of different types of cancer and cancer growth and cancer risk. Dairy also has a lot of hormones in it and saturated fat, a lot of sodium. Part of the cheese making process is actually adding sodium. So if you're concerned about high blood pressure, like I am, getting sodium out of your diet in as many forms as possible is great. So getting rid of the cheese is moving in that direction. So next I'm going to add some soy sauce, and this is low sodium soy sauce. We need a 1/4 cup of that. And I'm putting everything into the blender. You do need a blender for this recipe or a food processor because we're going to create like a cheese-like sauce, and only a blender or a food processor can really get you there. We are going to add something called nutritional yeast, and nutritional yeast is an inactive yeast. So it doesn't grow things like when you make bread. It doesn't ferment things. It has been heated so that it is no longer active. And this is a big container of it that I got. They sell smaller containers in the store. But nutritional yeast is like it helps give plant-based foods that kind of cheesy flavor. So any kind of plant-based cheese will likely have nutritional yeast in it. And I'll show you what it looks like. We are going to need 1 1/4 cups of this. And it's basically like a powder, you see. Yes, I buy it in bulk. So 1 1/4 cups of nutritional yeast. We're also going to need some garlic powder. We need 3/4 of a teaspoon garlic powder. We're going to need some salt, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I usually use just plain old ionized salt because a lot of people don't get enough iodine, and this will have it in it. So I just use regular old girl with the umbrella salt. And we're going to need 3/4 cups of water. So I'm putting that in there. I'm going to spray my 13 by 9 baking dish with some nonstick spray so that my Tofu Mac doesn't stick. And then I'm going to blend this sauce up. Oh, there's one more spice I like to put in this. It is optional because it does add a smokiness that not everyone wants in their mac and cheese. It is the smoked paprika, 3/4 teaspoons of it. 3/4 of a teaspoon. Just blend that in. All right, I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees. I'm gonna get my pot of pre-cooked elbow macaroni. I'm gonna pour the sauce in. And just stir this up to make sure the sauce is well blended in with the pasta. Got my pre-prepared dish. Just going to pour this in. All right. And then I'm going to take some breadcrumbs. I like to get a little crunchy topping on it. And in the recipe, I said 1/2 to a cup of breadcrumbs, but all I do is I just sprinkle them on top. And I'll show you how we're going to brown these breadcrumbs at the end. So that's it. We're going to pop this in the oven for 20 minutes. And then we're going to finish it by browning the top. So my black-eyed peas are not quite boiling. Once they do, I'll pop the lid on and I will come back to you. I've turned on the broiler. I'm going to put it back in under the broiler to brown the breadcrumbs, and it's going to take about 5 minutes of broiling. So I'm going to slide this in. And if you didn't want the crispy brown top, you could leave off the breadcrumbs, leave off the last step of broiling, but I love it with that little bit of crunch in it. Now I'm going to show you the black-eyed peas, which are done. And I wish that you could smell this because it smells delicious. So I'm just going to serve up a portion of this soup. And there you go. Let me tilt that angle a little so you can see it better. Oh, black-eyed peas, great source of protein, calcium, iron, and the collard greens, also a great source of calcium, and they have some protein in them as well. And those antioxidants that help you fight changes to your DNA that can lead to cancer, changes to your cells that can lead to aging. It's in this delicious broth with the balsamic vinegar and the liquid smoke. And you've got those other veggies in there, the red pepper, the celery, the onion. So this is a fantastic transition to a plant-based lifestyle. And I love to think of food and what it does for your health as a legacy that you can hand down to your kids. So switching these traditional dishes to something healthier is a legacy of health that you can hand down to your children and to other people in your family. And actually in my family, it's interesting that the plant-based ways have been handed up. My younger brother is plant-based. I became plant-based. And now our mom is plant-based. So we have the legacy of health going in both directions. And we're very excited to continue to live a healthier lifestyle. I'm going to check on the Tofu Mac. I'll be right back. The mac and cheese has been under the broiler for about 5 minutes. There it is. It's got that gorgeous browning on top. And I'm just going to take a little bit. Out here. It's got the nice creaminess inside. There you go. Gorgeous, delicious mac and cheese. Mac and tofu. And I just wanted to say one more thing about the soup. Just remember, you can remove the bay leaves so that nobody chomps down on those. Those are dried. They're not going to taste good even after they've simmered a bit. I also love to put an extra dash of balsamic into my soup because I like the tanginess. And if you feel like this isn't spicy enough, you can always up the seasonings. You can double the amount of all the seasonings if you like it a little more flavorful. You'll also find that, the next day the flavors are going to gel even more. So expect that second day to have even a more delicious soup. And some of you might be wondering, well, what about the other soul food classics like sweet potato pie and sweet potato pie? What was the other one? Chicken. Trying to think of the other one that I had on my mind. Cornbread, yes, cornbread. All you have to do is Google vegan cornbread or vegan chicken or vegan sweet potato pie, and you will find recipes to make those. I always make a vegan cornbread to go along with my black eyed peas and collard greens. I often make a sweet potato pie. So feel free to look for your favorite soul food recipes on the internet and turn them into plant-based family classics. And I really appreciate you guys watching this. I hope you guys try the recipes. The link to the recipes will be in the notes on my website, rooteddish.com. And I hope you guys have a great Black History Month. Bye.